listening to Your Secret is Safe with Me, non-judgmental talk about infidelity with Dr. Marie Murphy. If you're looking for new perspectives on complicated relationship issues, you've come to the right place.
Days go by, they're crawling by.
Hi, everyone. I am Dr. Marie Murphy. I'm a relationship coach, and I help people who are engaging in anything they think counts as infidelity to deal with their feelings, clarify what they want, and make decisions about what they're going to do. No shame, no blame, no judgments. You can talk to me about the things that seem too messy or weird or stigmatized to share with your best friend or your spouse or even your therapist. I understand that life gets kind of complicated sometimes, and I have the utmost respect for all of the crazy ins and outs of the human experience. So if you'd like to schedule an introductory coaching session with me or learn more about me and my work, you can go to my website, mariemurphyphd.com. Today, we are going to talk about death and infidelity in two ways. First, in terms of metaphorical death, and then in terms of literal death. And I know that for a lot of people, death is not a fun topic, or perhaps more accurately, death is not a topic that some people even want to touch. But I'm a big believer in the value of the practice of contemplating our own death, being aware that one day we will die. And although there is a lot that I could say about why I think this is so valuable, today I'm going to talk about a few reasons why it can be practical and helpful and valuable to do so. So last week, I talked about relinquishing parts of yourself that you really love, parts of your life, and also maybe parts of yourself that you really love and appreciate and enjoy in order to give yourself the opportunity to experience more of what you desire the most. And in that episode, in last week's episode, I told my story of giving up a moment in life I really loved, a set of life circumstances that I was really happy with, so that I could do something that I wanted to do very much, which was serve in the Peace Corps in Zambia. And if you listen to that episode, you know this already. But if you didn't, one of the big points I made was that sometimes when you give up good things in order to get different good things or in order to get better things, it can be really, really, really sad to let the old stuff go, even if you are sure that you want to make room for new experiences. And as I mentioned last time, one of the ways this shows up for a lot of my clients is that they'll be in a marriage or in a relationship that they're pretty sure they want to leave because they really want to have experiences that are not available to them within the container of their marriage. But they also feel a deep sadness about leaving their marriage, or maybe even deep uncertainty about leaving the marriage. And maybe this is because the marriage was, or it still is, quite good in a lot of ways, even if it isn't exactly what the person has wanted in many other respects. Sometimes this can be because ending the marriage means splitting up time with children or with pets. And for some people, the prospect of doing this is excruciatingly painful. And sometimes it's because leaving a marriage entails changes in every single aspect of life, right? So whatever the specific reasons are, making a major life change, such as leaving a marriage, can feel like a metaphorical death. And in a sense, it is a death. It's the death of a particular season of your life. It's the death of a relationship that may have been central to your existence for a long time, or at least the radical transformation of a relationship that may have been central to your existence for a long time. It's the death of all of the various aspects of your life that you may have organized around your marriage or your committed relationship. And therefore, it's the death of a particular version of you. And contemplating this can be absolutely terrifying, because one of the things about death is that a lot of us, most of us, many of us, all of us, don't know what happens after death. And even when we're facing an event that we know probably isn't going to lead to our literal death, if it seems at all like a metaphorical death, the event or the transition or the change that we're looking at or on the brink of making can be terrifying to contemplate. And getting divorced or leaving a long-term relationship or, making some other major change in our lives as we know it, as we know them, can seem like the end of the world as we know it. And that may not seem like a very appealing prospect at all because we don't know what's on the other side of the transition, and we don't know how to deal with the fact that we don't know my words today. We don't know how to deal with the fact that we don't know. So, to that point, for a while, there was a saying going around the interwebs, which was your new life will cost you your old one. And maybe that still is being printed on coffee mugs. Who knows? And I think this is true. I think that your new life will cost you your old one. But I think we need to go even further than that and say that entering into our new life will require us to be a new version of ourselves. And our new selves will cost us our old selves. And letting go of our old selves can be really scary, even when we know we want to change. Somebody, I don't know who, said, sometimes the scariest bridge to burn is the one between you and the person who you thought you were. I'll say that again. Sometimes the scariest bridge to burn is the one between you and the person you thought you were. Letting go of what we know to be true about ourselves usually means that we have to willingly embrace uncertainty at a level very close to home. And many of us don't like doing that, or perhaps more accurately, don't know how to go about doing that. What I think it behooves us to remember is that sometimes we have to let one season come to an end before another one can begin. Sometimes we have to let ourselves dissolve in order to reform. Sometimes we have to bury ourselves so that we can sprout anew. And nature is full of examples of what this looks like. The caterpillar has to spin itself a shroud, and by this, of course, I mean a chrysalis, in which it can melt down completely in order to rearrange itself into a butterfly. A seed has to be planted deep enough into the dark earth in order to sprout and grow. Winter has to come and do its thing and bring about a little bit of desolation and death in order to prepare the earth for spring. Well, I maybe shouldn't say that last example given climate change being what it is and all, but you get the idea. Sometimes we have to surrender completely and trust that if we allow change to occur, we'll make it through to the other side of the process where a whole new set of possibilities will be open to us. Except I shouldn't say it like that exactly. I just said that sometimes we have to surrender completely, but that isn't really true because we don't have to do anything. We don't have to allow changes in our life. They may happen whether we like it or not sometimes, but we can always resist them kicking and screaming if we so choose. What I really mean here is that we have the opportunity to recognize that in life, there are so many cycles of death and rebirth. And we may gain so much from embracing the idea that this applies to us too. It applies to the caterpillar and the butterfly. It applies to the changing of the seasons, and it applies to us and the seasons of our lives. So we can accept the idea intellectually, if we choose, that there isn't just one death or one literal death of ourselves. We can accept, if we choose, the idea that there are many cycles of detachment and release and dissolution, I should say, not disillusion, but that might be true too. Disillusionment. Some of these cycles of death may seem bigger to us than others. Some of our metaphorical deaths may seem like bigger deals than others do to us. But each death or dissolution is what allows us to be reborn, so to speak, or to come into new states of being, to give life to new or previously unexpressed parts of ourselves. The mighty oak tree must be willing to give up being an acorn if it is to grow. The caterpillar, excuse me, getting ahead of myself, the butterfly must be willing to give up being a caterpillar if it's ever going to fly. Not that there's anything wrong with being an acorn or a caterpillar. Those two states of being have their time and place. But if we are going to evolve and expand into the fullest expression of who we are, old versions of ourselves and old configurations of ourselves and our lives may need to be composted to provide fuel for the next cycle. Whenever we want to evolve, we have to be willing to shed some old skin. Now, if all of this sounds like super scary and terrifying and dramatic and all of that, I have great news. It's okay to have all kinds of thoughts and feelings about going through a metaphorical death of your own, even if you accept in the abstract that such transitions are necessary and important. Put a little differently, it is okay to have a total tantrum, meltdown, freak out, panic, meltdown moment, etc., or something along those lines if you are going through your own metaphorical death. Knowing intellectually that transformation requires a bit of dying does not mean that you have to find the process comfortable or easy or pleasant. But knowing intellectually that transformation can be excruciatingly uncomfortable at times may help you approach that discomfort with a little more willingness, a little more trust, and a little more compassion for yourself as you go through your growth process. And all of this is to say that if you are leaving a marriage or a relationship and you feel like you're dying, even though you're sure as you can be that you do want to leave that relationship, that is not a sign that anything has necessarily gone wrong. In fact, it may be a sign that you're allowing exactly what needs to happen to happen. Now, even if you aren't in the midst of a major life transition or contemplating a major life transition, I think it can be really helpful to contemplate our own metaphorical deaths because doing so can help us clear the path to changes of all varieties of any magnitude. In order to make any change in your life that you want to make, even if it's a purely positive change, so to speak, you are going to have to recreate your identity to a certain extent. And that means letting go of some part of your identity in order to make room for the new. And doing this with even supposedly small things can be a pretty big deal because changing who you are can seem like the death of a version of yourself. And when we resist this out of a fear of the unknown, we pass up the opportunity to evolve into the most current version of ourselves. And this, again, this applies to little things as well as big things. Like, let's say you want to stop eating sugar or something like that. Even if that doesn't mean that you have to like move out of your house and like change custody arrangements with your kids and, like end a romantic partnership that's been a big part of your life, or like, tell everyone that you've been having an affair and this is your new person who used to be your affair partner, who was the occasion for the end of your marriage. Like, even if you don't have to do like things like that, even doing something like not eating sugar anymore may mean that you have to let go of the part of your identity that was really excited about cupcakes, right? Or really excited about baking treats for everyone you know, right? It could mean things like that. And even if they're small, so to speak, in our collective estimation of things, they may be a pretty big deal for you. So it's worth asking yourself often, who would I have to allow myself to stop being in order to be the person I want to become? That's one way to contemplate your own metaphorical deaths, big and small, so to speak, on a regular basis. Put differently, that's one thing you can do to start clearing the path for new possibilities in your life on a regular. Okay, now I'm going to switch gears and talk about literal death. As far as I know, we are all going to die, at least in the sense that the physical bodies we currently inhabit will one day cease to function. Now, I know very well that many religious and spiritual traditions have very clear ideas about eternal life and or reincarnation, and that for some people there's no such thing as spiritual death. And I respect whatever your perspectives are on that. But I'm not talking about that right now. I'm talking about the fact that, as far as I know anyway, the death of the physical bodies we inhabit is a certainty. The literal end of our lives as we know them is a certainty. Even if we believe in some form of eternal spiritual life, we tend to acknowledge that one version of our lives comes to a definite end when our bodies expire. Therefore, I think it's very important for us to consider the question the Buddhist nun Pema Chodron asks us to consider, which is this: death is certain, time of death is uncertain. What matters? And I'll repeat that. Death is certain, time of death is uncertain. What matters? I think this is a great question for all of us to ask ourselves as often as possible, right? Like to go back to the eating sugar example thing that I raised a second ago, like it may be like knowing that death is certain, but time of death is uncertain. Sometimes it may be more important to eat the cupcake, right? That may be the best thing for us in any given moment. But maybe if we eat cupcakes all day, every day, and we've been doing this for a while and we don't like the consequences that has had for us, what matters may be not eating the cupcake. Right. Okay. So, again, I think this is a great question with so many applications for all of us all the time. But I want to suggest 3 reasons why this question might have practical applications for you if you are engaging in infidelity. Here is practical application number 1. Remembering intentionally that life is both finite and unpredictable can really help us clarify what we want. It can be so easy to get sucked into the vortex of confusion or kick the can down the road or shove things we don't know what to do with under the rug indefinitely. And I know, I've done this too, because sometimes it seems so much easier to just put things off. Sometimes we tell ourselves we're confused and we don't know what to do about that. Sometimes we tell ourselves that things will be easier to deal with later. And, when we tell ourselves these things, it usually doesn't inspire efficient decision making. And I understand as well as you do that it can be so easy to get swept up in the business of just getting through life. Most of us have to do a lot of things to sustain ourselves and sustain the lives we've created. And disruption of any kind can seem like something to be avoided at all costs when we're primarily concerned with just getting through the week. And on the one hand, I am not denying the fact that getting through the week can involve doing a lot of things. But what if it isn't just about getting through the week? What if the question for all of us is, to quote the poet Mary Oliver, what are we going to do with our one wild and precious life? If the time is now and we don't know how long it's going to last, what do you want to do with your time here? Who do you want to spend it with? Who do you want to be? Where do you want to live? What do you want to be doing? And what are you willing to let go of so that you may be able to live more fully while you are alive in this one wild and precious lifetime of yours? It can be really easy to avoid these kinds of questions indefinitely because we think they'll be easier to think about after the holidays or after the vacation or after that big work deadline or after the whatever. And on the one hand, I'm not advocating for frenzied rushing any more than I'm advocating for avoidance. But if these are the kinds of questions that you want to answer for yourself at some point, you might not want to wait too long, because we never really know how much time we've got. Which takes me directly to my point number 2. What happens if something happens to you or your affair partner, assuming that you have an affair partner? Now, this is just an example, of course, right? There are other infidelity situations, and I'm not attempting to outline all of the possibilities or describe the range of situations that my clients come to me to work through. But let's say you have an affair partner. Do you want to be able to see them in the hospital if they're sick or injured? If something happens to them, do you want to be the person who gets a phone call? Do you want to be able to mourn them in public if they die? Do you want to be the one who organizes their funeral? What would happen if they died tomorrow? And would you be okay with whatever limits there might be on your knowledge of what happened or your ability to find out what happened or your ability to participate in the events surrounding their death? And I'm not asking these questions to be unnecessarily scary or morbid. Death is certain, but time of death is uncertain, people. And this doesn't have to be a bad or scary thing. The fact that we are all going to die is neutral until we give it meaning. Death doesn't have to be bad. But, on the other hand, we don't even really have to give this meaning. We can put the matter of death out of our heads completely if we want to. And who knows, that might serve some purpose for us. But there also might be reasons why you want to think about death. Thinking about death can help us clarify what is important to us and help motivate us to take action in support of the things that are important to us. So if you have an affair partner, what would be important to you if you or your affair partner were injured or incapacitated or dying or dead? Would you want to be able to be with them or have them be with you? And your answers to these questions may help you clarify what you want to do about your situation. Maybe if you were gravely ill, you would want no one other than your affair partner to be able to hold your hand in your toughest moments. That's instructive if that's your situation. But maybe your biggest concern would be that no one in your family ever find out about your affair under any circumstances, even if that were to mean that you wouldn't be able to see your affair partner in their, last weeks or last moments or something like that. And that's instructive too. And this brings me to my next point. Point number 3. If your affair is a secret or your infidelity behaviors are secrets, there is a possibility that they could become unsecrets in the event of your death. And I know unsecret isn't really a word, but I'm going to say it here anyway. But in case my use of language isn't clear, what I mean is that if you're having a secret affair or you have a secret infidelity situation and you die suddenly, your affair or your infidelity situation could come to light. Other people could find out about it. And the same thing could be true if your affair partner dies suddenly. And believe me, this kind of thing does happen sometimes. And sometimes it is quite a dramatic event for the bereaved. On the one hand, the bereaved have just lost someone important to them. And on top of that, they've just found out that their loved one had some sort of a secret relationship going on, or maybe a whole secret life, or even a whole secret family, or who knows what the specifics are. And depending on your personal beliefs about death, that might not seem like a problem at all because you won't be there to deal with any of the fallout. And if that's your take, that's fair. But you may also want to consider what might happen if you died suddenly and your loved ones learned about your affair or your secret relationship stuff after the fact. Do you want to leave a surprise like that as a parting gift? And what might the situation look like for your affair partner if you have one, and for their family if they have one? What would the ripple effects of your infidelity coming to light after your death look like for everyone else involved in this situation? Right? Now, for some people, thinking about this kind of stuff, these kinds of questions, provides motivation to be really scrupulous about covering their tracks and ensuring that an affair or any other covert behavior would never be found out in the event of their sudden death. And that's one approach. That's legitimate. And for other people, thinking about this motivates them to make decisions about their relationships a little more efficiently so that there aren't effectively secrets that might come to light if they were to die suddenly. And for you, it might motivate something else entirely. But the central question here is this: How do we want to handle our business while we're alive and able to attend to our business? And this is a great question for all of us to consider, whether we're engaging in infidelity or not. What is it most important for us to take responsibility for dealing with, knowing that death is certain, but time of death is uncertain? What aspects of our business would we want others to have to contend with if we were suddenly hit by a bus? Now, I want to be really clear that I am not talking about all this stuff and raising these questions to inspire fear or panic. I'm not suggesting that you are going to get hit by a bus anytime soon, or that you should make rushed decisions about your relationships right this second so that you can prepare rigorously for the possibility of a sudden death. Rather, I am asking you and me and everyone we know to consider how we can use an awareness that life is finite and unpredictable to inspire us to get our shit together, to get clear on what we want and what we want to do about it, and then to actually do it, even though it may be really uncomfortable to go after what we really want, to make changes in our lives, to line up our actions with our deepest desires. All right, everyone, that is it for today. Get on out there and consider what you might be willing to let go of in order to become more of who you are. Get out there and think about what you want to take care of and act decisively on. And if you want my help doing this, I'm here for you. You can schedule an introductory coaching session with me through my website, mariemurphyphd.com. Because here's the thing, listening to the podcast is one thing. Listening to hear me talk about all this stuff is great, but learning the tools and practices that you can use to apply what I talk about on the podcast to your own life in a concerted way is another thing. And that's the value of working one-on-one with me. So if you're ready to invest in making changes in your relationship situation or relationship situations, let's work together. I can't wait to speak with you. Okay, thank you so much for listening. As always, I would love it if you would head on over to iTunes to rate and review the show if you have enjoyed what you've heard. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to Your Secret is Safe with Me with Dr. Marie Murphy. Make sure to click subscribe to get updates on our latest episodes.